With Checo and Max's relationship at a new all-time low and the cracks appearing to widen, it now looks like Max will use his ever-increasing influence to force out Sergio and replace him with Daniel. Experts and analysts have weighed in on whether Daniel will just be a reserve driver or could he possibly be taking Checo's place. Let's just say some of them are pretty controversial. Let's be honest, would you blame Checo for wanting to leave if he did? What are all the experts saying, and should Perez leave? Stick around to the end to find out. While Max Verstappen crossed the finish line as the dominant winner, Sergio Perez finished third at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. As a result, the Mexican driver lost second place in the championship to Charles Leclerc, with the Ferrari-based team admitting that their strategy finally worked and it bamboozled Red Bull into an error which ultimately allowed them to take second place.
A long way round at turn 3, so Leclerc goes for the old switcheroo, forces...
Unbeknownst to Red Bull, Ferrari's strategists had devised a one-stop plan for Leclerc, but to allow the latter to gain an upper hand on Perez, the team sent out a dummy call on lap 33 to trick Red Bull, box opposite Perez. Red Bull immediately called the Mexican in for a fresh set of softs, while Leclerc powered ahead, managing his tires with the intent of reaching the end of the race without undertaking a second stop. The plan worked like a dream and left Perez chasing his Ferrari rival in the closing stages of the race, but coming up short.
Towards turn 4 from Verstappen, then comes Carlos Sainz and Sergio Perez, Hamilton, Russell, and then...
by 1.3 seconds at the checkered flag. Not everyone thinks that this is the case, with Peter Windsor believing Red Bull did this to further dram between its drivers and avoid a repeat of the Brazil Grand Prix. Probably a mistake, I think, by Checo to get on the radio on lap 29 to say, "Max is holding me up," which was like a red rag to a bull, because at that moment, of course, Max immediately started to reduce his lap times and the gap between Max and Checo started to increase. When that message gets out, he thinks, right, this is starting to get serious now. I'm not going to have another issue with Checo. I think at that point, Red Bull felt just to avoid any sort of issues in this race, because no matter what they say, no matter what the smiles said before the race about the relationship between Max and Checo, inevitably if they got close, there might have been some issues. It was a strategy mentioned by Pirelli as a potential race-winning strategy, so Red Bull could always argue, we split the strategies between the two drivers. Now, over the course of the season, Red Bull Racing have suffered a quickly deteriorating relationship between their drivers, with issues at Barcelona, Monaco, and then Checo asking if the team would help him win the Mexico Grand Prix. Verstappen was furious, responding, "No chance." The double world champion believes the Mexican should be allowed to beat him on merit. The issue became moot as Perez fell behind Lewis Hamilton, finishing P3 as Max went on to claim victory. It eventually culminated in an explosive exchange in Brazil. Again, Perez had requested he be favoured to improve his chance of finishing P2 in the driver's title. Verstappen was asked by the team to let Sergio through on the last lap, but he refused.
With 12 laps fresher tyres, Charles Leclerc...
This highlights what a competitor Max is. The man has a will to win that only few people have, with Damon Hill believing that Max's attitude and how Red Bull react to them demonstrates the power Verstappen has within the team, and speculates the return of Daniel Ricciardo may be at Max's behest. The two drivers are known to have a great friendship, and the implication is Ricciardo is set to replace the disgruntled Perez. If you think about the problems they've had between Max and Sergio, let's say the toys go out the pram and there's some sort of fallout. Daniel Ricciardo could be in prime position. It is his home and he does owe a lot to Red Bull, so I think he'll be very keen to be back part of the fold. If relationships deteriorate, sometimes it becomes unworkable, and my suspicion is Max has quite a lot of power in that team. Damon Hill believes Ricciardo's last 4 years away from Red Bull have made him a more complete driver. What is it about the prodigal son who returns? He could be in a good position coming back, having learned a lot in other places. I do think that drivers who spend a long time with one team, their experience is actually limited, so it can be that you improve having been somewhere else and then returning to bring something back to the place you started.
And the drivers have to reduce their speed now, no overtaking, drive to within 40%.
David Coulthard has gone one step further and praised the behavior of Max Verstappen, believing that consistency of decision is better than inconsistency, and blames Red Bull for this mess, as they should not have asked Max if he had already given his opinion. Coulthard believes Perez should be grateful to Red Bull as they essentially revived his career. Checo was out of Formula One with no one knocking on his door, he said. Red Bull gave him the opportunity to come back, and a car that's nailed on to win races. Further, Sergio was not forced to sign a full-blown number 2 driver contract by Red Bull, and Coulthard believes he's been given an equal opportunity to Verstappen. He's had a fair crack at the whip to try to beat Max, and he has consistently not delivered on the same level. He has occasionally done so, and I admire the victories he has had. David Coulthard believes Sergio Perez is not entitled to any gifts, and if he doesn't like his current position, he should just leave the team. If Checo doesn't like it, then he can leave the team, he continued. But where is he going? So, for me, it's just another one of those sporting decisions. The reality is that Max is one of the elite drivers in the world. Elite drivers like the Schumachers and Sennas didn't pass through their career without examples of standoffs and disagreements with their teams. That's part of their DNA and part of what makes them successful. To use a line from Jerry Maguire, it's not show friends, it's show business.
Yeah, Verstappen straight in front of me. It's too good an opportunity to miss, especially as these tyres seem...
Another man who loves an opinion, in particular about Mick Schumacher, is Ralf Schumacher, and he seems to have moved on from his nephew to now talk about the issue on hand at Red Bull. Ralf thinks Max Verstappen would prefer Daniel Ricciardo to Sergio Perez as his teammate, ahead of the Australian's return to Red Bull as third driver. Ralf believes that the double world champion holds such influence at Red Bull, Schumacher could imagine the Dutchman trying to exert some pressure to try and get Ricciardo back alongside him instead of Perez. Not 100% sure that Perez will still be the teammate next year, said Schumacher, quoted by motorsporttotal.com. I think Ricciardo has a good chance. Behind the scenes, it must be very, very aggressive, and I think Max wants a new combination. Max is now the spearhead of Red Bull. The whole future is set up for him until 2028. At the end of the day, he pulls the coals out of the fire and brings home the victories. Accordingly, I could imagine his contract also gives him the opportunity to have a say in who drives next to him, and I think he prefers Ricciardo. Now, we all know what you were thinking, surely that is not possible, but let's take a look. Let's not forget why Ricciardo finds himself settling for a third driver role next year. He has vastly underperformed for McLaren. Since the 33-year-old left the team at the end of 2018, Red Bull struggled to find a driver who could even get close to Verstappen in terms of performance. They finally found the right candidate in Perez, who has won 3 races for the team and has managed to compete at the highest level, finishing third in the Drivers' Championship. Why would Red Bull want to change an effective partnership just because of one spat over team orders? And especially when they face a strong renewed challenge from Mercedes in 2023. It is entirely feasible that if Ricciardo returned to a team with which he is familiar and has enjoyed success with, that he could rediscover his mojo. But it is equally possible that he is simply not the driver he once was. An experienced backup if required, yes. However, it's difficult to escape the feeling that if the Interlagos incident proved to be a breaking point in the relationship between Red Bull and Perez, and surely it will not, that bringing back Ricciardo would be a definite backward step. Let us know what you think. Should Daniel replace Checo?